Tectone recently presented his idea of a leaderboard. In a previous video, I said that his vision of what a leaderboard in Genshin should look like was a completely trash idea, and that I would explain why I thought that in another video. This is that video. I'm not one to simply trash someone's idea or argument without providing reasons as to why they are wrong, or without giving my own thoughts and argument for people to critique. People who simply say that another person is wrong without saying why or giving their own stance are cowards and are stupid. Leaderboards in video games are a great way to measure skill and to boast your rank to other players. Now with that out of the way, I'd like to explain why I think Tectone's version of a leaderboard is trash. Tectone said that his leaderboard would have free-to-play accessible rewards and insinuated that it would be connected to an endless floor mode, which I also gave my thoughts on in a separate video.
And I get what they're trying to do, but you can't just say, just fix it, forehead, make it better, forehead. You should be listing examples of things that they could do. Rather than saying implement new, repeatable, permanent content, what you should do is list specific examples. That way the community can rally behind the same example. That way you can test your account by seeing if you can get past the next wall and the next wall and the next wall, kind of like a survival wave mode. Now, I am a firm advocate in making leaderboards, but leaderboards just for ranking, and the rewards from the leaderboards would only be free-to-play accessible rewards, like, you know, Mystic Enhancement, or maybe you could do a little bit of more on some EXP books, but nothing crazy like Primo Gems. That's what I would do. And I know not everybody's crazy about that, but I think leaderboards would be cool as long as they didn't give players an edge over others.
There are two things wrong with this. First, leaderboard rewards need to be enticing to attract more players. The more players that participate, the more competitive the leaderboard rankings would be, and the higher the ego of those at the top of the leaderboard. You'd also want rewards to be enticing so that people don't feel as it is a pain. Yes, sure, people play endless floors or something like the Spiral Abyss for challenge and for fun, but it'd be better if more people would engage in difficult content to have a higher player retention and to give people more reasons to play Genshin. So now that we have established that leaderboard rewards need to be enticing and not simply more or enhancement, or at least not at the higher levels, we can move on to the second point. The idea that a leaderboard system should be connected to an endless mode with no restrictions is absolutely bonkers. Why? Because it creates an unfair playing field. The leaderboard would end up having the whales be at the top and the people who aren't whales be at the bottom. Whales would end up at higher floors than free-to-play players, meaning the leaderboard turns into a competition of who can spend more rather than who is best at the game. This would inevitably lead to a lot of backlash and frustration for those trying to climb the ladder who are broke or are in an American college like myself. So, the question is, how do you create a fair leaderboard system with enticing rewards that is fair and accessible to all players in a pay-to-win game? At face value, this sounds like a very difficult question to answer, but it's actually pretty simple. In order to create a leaderboard that achieves this, a new game mode would have to be released that is fair and with predetermined items. Fortunately, we already know that MiHoYo, or Hoyoverse, is capable of doing this. In previous events and in character trial runs, we are given characters with predetermined artifact sets and stats, alongside a weapon. This is how the game mode should be. This new game mode would make it so that everyone has access to the same type of gear and stats, so that the only contributing factor that determines your rank on the leaderboard is how skilled you are as a player. Now, how will the characters be decided for this leaderboard game mode? There are numerous characters in the game that differ in rarity. It would also be boring if everyone was using the same team to climb the ladder. My solution is to use the current banner characters as the trial characters you would play with to earn a score on the leaderboard. This also means that every 3 weeks, the leaderboard would reset and you would have a new test challenge. It also makes the game mode interesting and fresh because you were given new characters and teams to play with every reset. And while some banner characters might synergize together, others might not go so well together, which adds a randomized difficulty component that keeps the mode fresh and fun. But this actually has another benefit. The thing is, Genshin Impact actually has two components that contribute to a player's skill level. The first is mechanical skill, which comes with experience and intuition. How well a player can dodge or use iframes are part of their mechanical skill. The other half is their knowledge. How well can someone theorycraft a team to best achieve their goal? Is it a taser team? Maybe double hydro? Or perhaps it's a freeze team? This is a point I would like to emphasize. A leaderboard should test a player's strategic ability and mechanical skill to really test just how good they are and how well they know the game, which is why I think the system could go even deeper. Instead of simply giving us predetermined artifacts and weapons, instead we should be given an arsenal of predetermined artifacts and weapons to select from. This would allow players to potentially use out-of-the-box solutions that they would not traditionally use. For example, what if the banner characters were Zhongli, Chongyun, Bennett, and Razor? Some players might try and use DPS Bennett that melts with Chongyun. Others might use Zhongli with a Crescent Pike and not use Chongyun's E ability, but only uses ult to apply Super Conduct with Razor. Newer players may try to make Cryo Razor work. The possibilities vary widely. This would increase the longevity of the game by having players experiment with different team comps for the 3 weeks and try out characters in a way they may not traditionally play them. It would also be a great test of players' knowledge and problem-solving skills, which again is why we should be able to select and choose what artifact set pieces and weapons the characters can equip. Now, there is a big issue with this idea. That being, you would have to choose your stats for every artifact piece, and that is just a massive hassle. In order to circumvent this issue, the player should only be able to choose the main stat for the goblet, headpiece, and circlet, and have the substats be predetermined. By limiting your options, it would allow it so that you aren't overwhelmed by all the substats you would have to choose, or just get bored and quit before you even start. This isn't a perfect solution, but it was the best way I could think of to make it work. An example of what this might look like is what Lost Ark does with Hell Mode Legion raids. You get to choose your skill points and your engravings. It's the same concept, but I'm applying it to Genshin, where you can choose your artifacts and weapons, but have the characters set to be whatever banner characters are currently running. The actual trial that ranks you on the leaderboard would be something similar to the Spiral Abyss, where you get pitted against random enemies with no time limit, but with a timer that goes to the millisecond. In the event of a tie, whoever completed the trial first would be ranked higher. The lower your time, the higher your placement on the leaderboard. This leaderboard in game mode would also be good for newer players because they might start out at the bottom of the leaderboard, but as they play the game, they go higher and higher. They would be able to feel the progression of themselves getting better as a player alongside their separate progression of their accounts. Veteran players might also be inclined to play the game more and even brush up on their skills in practice to get a higher rating. And some people might wonder, what about the casual? What about the people who play casually? Well, leaderboards aren't for them. They are for those who are competitive like myself and people who want to see how they compare against other people. Again, it's another thing that players can do but don't have to. Now, as for the rewards, they should obviously scale the higher rank you are. I think there should be participation Mora and XP books for those who are bottom feeders or just want to try out the game mode. The top 50% is where the rewards start to ramp up. The upper 50% should get something like Primo Gems or Star Glitter alongside their participation trophies. The top 10% is where things get juicy. I think getting a 4-star constellation of one of the 4-star banner characters would be a great reward and further up the stakes of the competition, though it's very unlikely that Mihoyo would ever do this. The top 100 players would get some sort of name card or vanity item, maybe even a second constellation. You'd be able to check your placement on the website or some sort of external source, as I am unsure how difficult a leaderboard would be to put in the actual game. Although it is very unlikely that this company would ever lift a finger to implement something like this, I still wanted to give my thoughts and opinions on it because that's what I like to do. I might get people to start talking or create drama that I can farm. If you enjoyed this video, then consider subscribing to see more content like this. Please let me know if you like or dislike any of my ideas and give me some criticism. Anyways, take care and thanks for listening to my TED Talk.